Hi, my name is Adrienne. I'm the Ketogenic Kutie, and I welcome you to my meal prep video. In today's video, we are meal prepping produce, keto granola and fruit parfait with bacon and deviled eggs, sausage and cheese stuffed peppers, and crustless pizza bake. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. So I start off my meal preps by preheating the oven. There was a few things that could go in the oven at the same time on 350, so I just go ahead and get that started. And I also start my coffee. I start with my fruit as well. Start to get them to soaking so I can clean them. I use a little bit of vinegar. My sinks are pre-sanitized, and I put a little water in there and my vinegar and let my fruit soak for a few minutes until I feel like it's been long enough, or I go do something else and I come back. And then I give them a good rinse off of what was, from them soaking. I drain the water and rinse them off and allow them to dry on a paper towel on one of my cutting boards. Now, there was some vegetables in there, namely the peppers that I was going to use for the stuffed peppers. So I went ahead to dry them off, and I'm going to cut them up, and you'll see that later in the video. Right now, I'm just drying off the excess water from the grapes and the strawberries, and I'm going to let them air dry a bit. So with my peppers, I washed them off and I cut them in half, and I'm just going to season them just for a bit. I want to put them in the oven. That's why I'm preheating it. That's one of the items I'm going to preheat. I want to soften them a bit before putting the stuffing or the dip in between the peppers. So I'm putting a little olive oil, using an olive oil spray in my spray bottle, and I'm gonna put sea salt and black pepper on them just to kind of give them a little seasoning, because green pepper is gonna be kind of bland if you just eat them plain, and I want them to be a little softened prior to baking them with the dip inside, because you want a firm bite, but you don't want them mushy. So I don't want them too hard and I don't want them too soft. So just doing a preheat on 350 for about 15 or 20 minutes gets them to the bite that I like for them to be. I'm also prepping to go in the oven my bacon, because like I said, all that can go in at the same time, and that bacon can cook low and slow until it gets to the crispness or the doneness that I like. When the bacon comes out, I like to put it on a piece of paper towel so that the excess oil can drain, and you can save that oil for something else to season up some other things. If you do onions and peppers on the stove or anything else you want to season, that bacon grease is really good for later use if that's what you're into. So while my peppers are in the oven, I also started to cut up my strawberries, and yes, I do use old Talenti containers. My husband likes Talenti ice cream, so I use those containers to store other things when we're done with it. Multi-purpose, right? I store them in the refrigerator, and I get started on my eggs. I'm going to make deviled eggs in this prep, so I'm starting out with boiling the number of eggs that I'm going to need. I let the eggs come to a boil, and I let them boil for about 2 minutes, and then I take them off the heat and I put a top over them for about 11 minutes, and that gives it the perfect boil. It doesn't overcook the eggs, and the peels, it usually peels pretty easily when I do it this way. Once the 11 minutes is up, I drain them and I put them in a cool bath. I put some ice to them so that they can have they can stop the cooking process, and also it'll help me to peel them a lot better. Now, some of the peels don't work in my favor, and it does kind of like mess me up sometimes, but I get them all peeled as easily as it can be. And then I start separating the egg yolks from the eggs. And as you can see here, those are my egg yolks that I have left over. That I have from the eggs that I cut up. And then I have the actual eggs on a plate here ready for filling. These are the ingredients that I use to season my egg yolks. And I'll put the information in the description of what I use as well. So I haven't put like exact descriptions or the exact measurements of these things, but I'm using Mayo, pickle relish, sweetened with Splenda, Mayo, and I'm kind of doing these things to taste, because as you can see, I'm starting out with maybe a couple tablespoons of each, maybe 1 tablespoon of the mustard, and then a couple tablespoons of the Monkfruit sweetener, and then garlic powder and onion powder. And I stir it all up and try to see what it tastes like. And as you can see, once I start stirring, I was like, well, if that's not enough mayo, I could tell that I needed more mayo. So I just add the mayo or add ingredients until I feel comfortable. It tastes like I want it to taste, or it looks like I want it to look. And I just do that until it's to my liking. So I haven't measured that out, but once I do type it out, I probably can make some good educated guesses about how much I use with each thing. And whenever you're making these items, do it according to your taste buds. Do it to what makes you happy. You want things that you try in keto to be flavorful, and you don't want to compromise taste and texture for anything. So make sure that it tastes to your liking. If you're going to be making an item that you're keto-fine, quote unquote, if you're going to keto-fine an item, make sure it tastes like you want it to taste, and use the proper items to keep you in ketosis, but as well as making sure your meal tastes as good as it can taste. So once I mix everything up and it tastes how I want it to, I stir it up, and I'm going to now try to put it in the eggs, put the mixture into the eggs. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. To do that, I do have a mechanism or a gadget that I can use to make it all pretty, but this time I just grabbed a bag because I didn't feel like all that cleanup. I just grabbed a sandwich bag or freezer bag and start filling it up with the egg yolk mixture. And I'm gonna cut the tip of that and just start squeezing it into the eggs. And it's just an easy process. Once I'm done with that bag, I can just simply throw it away instead of having to clean out the container or the gadget that I use for piping and stuff like that. And here's my finished product. I'm just going to use some paprika on the top just to garnish. I always saw my mom do this. I never asked why. Paprika never tastes like anything, but it always made the dish pretty, so I do the same. And that's the finished product of my deviled eggs. So I'm going to move on because by now my stuffed peppers are out of the oven, and these are the ingredients that I use. It's just the queso dip that I was using, and I'll link in the description box the recipe for the queso dip that I've done before. I've done a video on that already, so I will put that in the description box to show you how I do that if you don't know. And I'm just stuffing the peppers with that queso dip mixture. I'm going to top this with Gouda because I love Gouda cheese. If you don't know that by now, if you haven't seen some of my other videos, I use Gouda cheese pretty often. And I get that from Aldi. It's a little bag that you can get for maybe like $1.99 or $2.99 or something like that. But I top them with Gouda, and I also put a little bit of onion salt on the top from Trader Joe's. I like their onion salt. And I put those in the oven on 350 for about 15 minutes until that cheese melts and everything kind of solidifies in the pepper. I add a little spinach side salad with just bacon and feta cheese, and I'm going to add some ranch dressing to that and put that in my little container for meal prep, and it'll be ready to go whenever you have lunch or whenever you have dinner. It'll be a meal that's already set and ready to go. Very convenient. It reheats well. I love those containers. I get those from Amazon, and I can link the containers in the description box below as well. Pretty, isn't it? I love it. For my second meal, I'm doing the keto granola and fruit parfait. So I got this keto granola from Amazon. I saw that on the container, they advertise this as you can use it as a cereal or something to go into your smoothies or whatever you want to use it for. It's very low carb. I think with the sugar alcohols and the fiber, it comes out to be about 2 net carbs per 1/3 cup. I didn't even use a 1/3 cup for this. I actually used a 1/4 cup for this recipe. And I put a little bit of granola in the containers, and I also put some strawberries that I prepped earlier and some blueberries. in the to-go containers as well, in separate containers, because I didn't want it to be soggy by the time they were going to be eaten. So I'm separating the fruit and the granola, and I'm going to put the yogurt in a different container as well. So for this recipe, I'm actually using some Too Good yogurt, and some people like the Too Good the way it is. I mean, it wasn't a problem for me, but I could stand it to be a little bit more jazzed up, so I added some vanilla extract, about a tablespoon or two of powdered erythritol or powdered Monkfruit sweetener, and a little bit of cinnamon, and I stirred it up and made sure it tastes like I wanted it to taste. And then I started putting it into my container so I could cover it completely. I didn't have to worry about any messes when I'm trying to transport this or use it for a snack at work, or if a client is using it, whatever the case may be. Those containers are very sturdy as well, and they hold up very well. So that's the finished product, my parfait, all there together, all ready for the work week. Now, this gives me a chance to kind of clean up a little bit, trying to kind of take a pause, load the dishwasher, start the dishwasher, and sanitize my sinks all over again. And just kind of clean up as I go, so I won't have such a mess to clean up once I'm finished with everything. I like to kind of do things as I go if I'm able to. So I'll move along from that after I get those dishes done and get the sinks resanitized, and I'm going to do the pizza bake. So these are the ingredients that I use for the pizza bake. I also added some I cooked down some sauteed mushrooms and some sausage. And I'm using as a base, instead of a crust, I'm using cream cheese at the bottom, and I'm seasoning that with a little bit of Italian seasoning. And I go in with some Rossetta's low carb marinara. To me, that's comparable to the Rayo's marinara sauce for half the cost. They both have about 3 or 4 net carbs per half cup. And I think for this entire recipe, I about used the half cup. And then after I put the marinara sauce in there, I started layering, kind of like a lasagna per se, with the sausage, anything that you would want in a pizza. This recipe is very versatile, and you can use whatever toppings you would like. And it almost tastes to me like a deep dish, or like a deep dish pizza without the crust. So I'm layering the mushrooms on top of that, then the cut up spinach on top of that, a little bit more Italian seasoning. And then I'm going to add some onion salt because I love that stuff. And I will also add some more Gouda cheese because I like cheese, if you have not figured that out by now. I'm adding a little bit more marinara, so that's where that other fourth of a cup comes from, and I'm just spreading that out just to add a little, because the tomato is going to pull a little moisture into it, into the dish, and it's also going to give that layer a little bit of the tomato flavor. On top of that, I'm putting the pepperoni layer. And then I'm going to add some mozzarella on top of that. Now that would go in the oven as well on 350, and I cook that for about maybe 18 to 20 minutes, just depending on how fast your oven cooks. You're basically letting the cheese melt and kind of letting some of those ingredients solidify in that casserole dish. And I put a little bit of pepperoni on top of that just so it'll look pretty. Not necessary if you don't want it. You can put whatever you want on top, or you don't have to put anything on top of that cheese if you don't want to. I just thought it would look pretty to do so. So I let that bake, and when I take it out, I let it sit for a little bit because I didn't want it to be too hot trying to put it into the container. So I just added, a serving of it in each container, and again did another spinach side salad because I like salads with my pizza. I think that adds to the meal. So this time I just put some bacon, bacon bits, and some feta cheese with my ranch dressing. There are plenty of things you can put on your side salad. It was so many ingredients in the pizza bake that I didn't want to go overboard with the salad and let that take all the thunder. So I just made it very basic. So here are my 3 meals again. That's the fruit parfait along with the deviled eggs and the bacon. And then the stuffed peppers with the side salad, and the pizza bake with the side salad. These are my 3 meal options for this meal prep. I hope you have enjoyed this video as I have enjoyed making it, and I hope this inspires you to make some meals of your own in a meal prep. I'm Adrienne the Ketogenic Kutie, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.